Starting a new Sefer Bamidbar, and we're also just a few days away from Kabbalas Torah, from Shavuos. And I'd like to share with you two, I think, very, very important fundamental messages that I think can be learned from the combination of the Parsha and where we are standing. Let's start with the first one. I think this is anybody that has had teenagers understands the frustrations that are involved in trying to raise a teenager. It's almost, we always resonates in our ears probably, our parents telling us, well, wait till you have a teenager, but I think there's a fundamental idea here that might not make it easier to raise teenagers, but at least gives us a better sense of perspective. Pasuk says, "Vayidaber Hashem Moshe Bamidbar Sinai that Hashem spoke to Moshe when they came to the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of meeting. Be'echad lachodesh hasheni. This was the first. This was yesterday. Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Right? Yes, that was the first of Sivan. But say some Eretz Mitzrayim Leimor. After they'd come out of Egypt. This was the second year after they'd left Mitzrayim. Se'u es Rosh Kol Hadas B'nei Yisrael L'Mishpachosam. We're going to take a census. Count of all the families according to their father's household, the patrilineage descent. They were going to be counted. We've spoken about in the past why, as a precursor to Kabbalas Torah, was it important to take a census? Why is it important? We've spoken the importance of understanding one's familial connections. Why is that a very important piece of accepting the Torah? No, I'm not going to get into that right now, but it's interesting who is included in the census. B'mispar shemos kol zachar l'gil gosam miben esrim shana v'mala. 20 years and up. So in order to be included in the census that was taken, you had to be 20. Kol yotzei tzava b'Yisrael, which was at the time, that was the cutoff from when that you went out to war. So to go out to war, to be in the army, you had to be 20 years and up. And that's also who was counted as part of the census when they wanted to understand exactly how many Jews are we dealing with at Har Sinai. What's that?
Also up to 50.
That's for the Levium, not for the census necessarily. But just trying to understand, just on a simple level, meaning we consider a person having legal majority and they're held responsible for their actions when you can actually execute them in a court of law from the age of 13 and 1 day. Bar mitzvah is the legal majority. We consider legal majority, mental acuity, maturity, development, 13 and 1 day. So why is it that when they're taking the census, it's only from the age of 20? Right? And why is it also that's the age when they go out to war? It's also when it's another way of saying that there's their communal responsibility. One of the greatest communal responsibilities is a sense of feeling responsibility for community, putting your life on the line for the community that's going out to war. It's the age of 20. It's interesting at a bris, the blessing that we give the child, right? Shekain shenichnas lebris, just as he has entered into the bris. Kain yekanes. What do we say? No, we say the Torah, lechupa, v'lemaasim tovim. It's a part of the liturgy, at least in the Ashkenazi. I think the Sephardim is the same. So just the order there, the commentaries try to understand. The order there is difficult to understand. Torah, okay, you could say Torah is 13, right? Chuppah, right? Ben Shmona Esrei lechuppah, 18 is in Maasim Tovim. What, you only expect them to start doing Maasim Tovim, good deeds, after they get married? I mean, how does it work? What's the order? We're blessing the child. Torah, lechuppah, u'lemaasim tovim. I think it should start off with lemaasim tovim. Why is the maasim tovim coming only after that, right?
Because the father said to the boy 13,
yeah, but this is when he's 8 days old, not 13. You're giving the blessing to the boy who's getting a bris milah.
It's after 13, it's counting.
So then why? But 18 is marriage, so therefore it should be after 13, not after 18. Right? So we're trying to figure out why is the census, when they counted them, was only from the age of 20, not bar mitzvah. You would think it's bar mitzvah. Why is it also called yotet tzava? There was also the age when they took them for the army. Today in most countries it's 18. It's around that age, but 20, that's there, it's 20. And why is the blessing we give the child? It's sheken nichnas lebrisk, ken yikanas letorah lechuppah lemaasim tovim. Maasim tovim we put at the end.
Rabbi, that was one of the most chazak shiur that you gave. I think maybe last year. It was so rashim, so beautiful.
Okay, let's see. I don't know if it's the same one. I don't remember. So
no,
let's see.
Torah,
All right. So the question is like this. You have an interesting concept. The Masechet Shabbat teaches us that there is a concept of a bet din, that there's a court in this world. That we have when there's a Sanhedrin, and they have courts in Israel. They have in the Bet HaMikdash, there was a place called the Lishkat HaGazit. It was carved out of the chamber where the Sanhedrin, there was like the Supreme Court was. And then there was courts disseminated throughout Israel. The courts of 70, then there's 23 for capital crimes, going down to courts
71.
of 70, 71 with the Av Bet Din. And then there was 23, and then there was 3. Each one's dealing with different... With different, but Chazal tell us that the same way as there is a concept of a Beit Din in this world, here on earth, there's also a Beit Din in Shamayim. And the Beit Din in Shamayim also judge people, and there's rulings that are given that for a certain type of sins were punished for in that Beit Din, and they have different rules. And one of the things that is interesting, there is a concept of what's known as a chiyuv mita b'dei shamayim, misa b'dei shamayim, that there's certain averos, certain sins that a court in this world will not deal with, but in shamayim, somebody can be judged that it's a capital offense in shamayim, and they'll deal with it as such. But what's fascinating from the Zohar says, and it's brought down, is that the Bet Din in Shamayim for passing out judgment doesn't start judging a person until the age of 20. Chiyuv karet, chiyuv mita, all b'dei shamayim, all those things don't start happening until the age of 20. So we can execute someone in Beit Din here at the age of 13. In Shamayim, say, you know what? You got 7 years reprieve. Age of 20, that's when we start. Why? What's the idea? So as I said, I think this is a really a fundamental understanding in our relationships with our kids, understanding what a teenager is. Pasuk tells us that the brothers hated Yosef and they plotted against him. It says, V'hu na'ar. Calls him a na'ar. He was acting like a na'ar with the other brothers. V'hu na'ar. A na'ar is usually a young lad. But a na'ar also has a pejorative aspect. In Yiddish, it's much clearer, but you call someone a na'ar. You call someone a na'ar. Now, sometimes a na'ar means like you're saying somebody is... when you refer to somebody as a nar, it's like you're saying that he is somebody that, not just immature, but he thinks he's someone that he's not. He thinks he's something, but he's not. He's a nar. He's not. He thinks he's something that he's not. That you said that the brothers looked at Yosef like he's a nar. What did Yosef? You think I'm going to be the king? He's giving these dreams, this star. Who's nar? He's a nar. Like he's fooling himself. Anytime a person does a sin, there's two aspects to doing a sin. Right? And it's what we get judged on as well. There is the impact of what a person is doing both to himself and to the society around him. Right? And also it's rebellion against God. Because God said, don't do it. So you did it. So there's two things that you're doing wrong. One is, who are you hurting? Yourself, those around you. And two, you rebelled against God. We ourselves as parents have that a lot too. When our kids ignore us or don't listen to us or do what we don't tell them, we get upset. But it's very important to make the distinction. Are we upset about what it is that they've done? Kid runs into the middle of the road. You get upset. You're upset because he ran into the middle of the road because he could get hit by a car? Or you're upset because I told you not to run in the middle of the road and you didn't listen to me? Right? Sometimes it's a gray area and it crosses over, and when we really reflect, then we can also identify what is getting us upset. Why are we upset? But in Avera is the same thing. There is what we've done and what we're impacting on others because of it, and the fact that you rebelled against Hashem. Beit Din, in a court of law, when you have a Beit Din here, their primary focus is that what have you done to affect society? What have you done to even hurt yourself? We have responsibility too. But they don't focus specifically on the rebellion that you've had against God because you didn't listen. Don't murder, and you murdered someone, so we're dealing with that because you killed somebody in society. We have to put restrictions on how can we prevent that from happening in society. The fact that you are over lo tirtzach, and Hashem said lo tirtzach, that Beis Din aren't going to be focusing on as much. You know which Beis Din does focus on that? That's the Beis Din in Shemayim. The primary focus of the Beis Din in Shemayim is they focus on the fact that you rebelled against Hashem. They don't focus on the impact that you're having against everybody else. That's what our Beis Din in court of law has to be taken care of. What Chazal are telling us here is the following. A child, when he hits 13, he already has the mental ability to know what's right and what's wrong. And therefore, he has that, there's enough maturity there, enough mental acuity to make the right decisions. And therefore, if he has done something that he now is a menace to society, he's hurt somebody, he's done something that could be harmful, we have a right to determine whether he has a right to exist in society or not, or what restraints, or what punishments, or what financial responsibility he has to bear, because he knows what's right and he knows what's wrong. We have a right from the age of 13 till that age, put on the parents. 13, it's his own responsibility. He has responsibility. What about the fact that what he's done is rebellion against Hashem? So why is Hashem ignoring it? Why are the Beis in Shemayim ignoring it until the age of 20? This is because he's a teenager. A person up to the age of 20 is fighting to identify who he is. He's searching. He's trying to identify. There's a sense of, I need independence. I need to define who I am. I don't want to just be seen as an appendage of my parent. I'm my own person. I'm a separate human being. Right? We spoke about that before. Bar mitzvah is very interesting. Bar is Aramaic. The Hebrew should have been ben mitzvah. Right? Why do we call it bar mitzvah? We don't call it bar mitzvah. Ben, bar is, Ben comes to the word binyan. Binyan is an appendage, a building onto. Bar in Aramaic means outside of. When a person hits 13, he's supposed to start looking at him. He's no longer an extension of us. It's not just an added room. He's a self. He's got now his own identity, his own independence, and that's what they search for. So therefore, part of being a teenager is that there is this search for independence, search for self-identity, that sometimes expresses itself in rebellion. Because the way sometimes a person can feel who they are separate from who my parent is, or from who, or anything that is trying to tell me what I should be doing, is even if it's a self-destructive act. Right? We learned that from Adam. Adam also was a sense. He was created. He wants to separate from God. What do you separate from God? God said, if you do this, you're going to die. He does it anyway. Why? That makes me feel like I'm my own person. You're going to die for it. I'd rather feel my independence. Searching for independence sometimes results in rebellion. But the rebellion is not because I actually want to rebel. I'm only rebelling. Why? Because that's the way I feel my independence. So you know what? In Shemayim, they give you 7 years. From 13 to 20, they're not punishing you for the rebellion. Because they understand that the rebellion is not a direct rebellion or affront to Hashem. It's just the way you are doing what you're doing to be able to feel who you are. Now, it's not an excuse. Based in Shemayim, in this world, for your impact, you know what's right and what's wrong. You're going to get punished. But Hashem says, I don't take it personally until the age of 20. When a person has reached the age of 20, then we don't expect a person to be self-absorbed anymore. Because really it's an act of self-being absorbed. Teenagers are self-absorbed. What are they thinking about? They think everything's about them. How's that one looking at me? No one cares about you, But no, he's going to worry about how I'm looking. It's all about me. It's all about me. They're completely self-absorbed. You have a right until you're 20. 20, we expect you already to be outward focused. You should have already identified who you are in life, what your purpose is, where you are, where you fit in. Start thinking about others already. That the expectation is. And at 20, you start rebelling against Hashem, then he takes it personally. Because then you're no longer rebelling just to identify who you are. Then you're rebelling against the relationship. And that's in the age of 20, then based in Shemayim already start punishing for that. But it's a tremendous, tremendous insight that those teenage years are years of discovery. It's years of trying things, challenging authority. It's all because that's all part of trying to identify who we are. We're looking for who we are. And sometimes we don't have the tools to identify who we are through the positive. We identify who we are through doing the negative. That gives us a sense of independence, and that's who we are. The idea of what a nar is by Yosef. A nar is, it's like you have these, when we're little kids, we wear our parents' shoes. It makes us feel like we're adults. The little girl walking around, her shoes are 4 sizes too big. Because we want to feel like we're adults. A teenager is a person who thinks he's an adult. A teenager, they want to be treated like an adult. That's what a teenager wants. Problem is they don't act like adults. If you don't act like adults, you're not going to get treated like adults. But it's it's a self-delusion of who you are. That's what huna'ar was. That you think you're a king when you're a king. You're a little pisher. What are you? You know, you're not a king. You know, but it's a self-delusion. That's the idea. That's a nar. It's somebody. So the point really is that's really what's represented in that time frame of 13 to 20.
I think that Potiphar said it to Paro about Yosef.
Not Potiphar. It was the Sar. The what's his name? The Mashkim. Yeah.
He said
Nari Tanu. Rashi says it's derisive. It's a pejorative. I'm explaining why it's a pejorative. But so the point over here is as well. The point is, when you're counting to see who's making up the nation. In order to be part of that, it's the person who goes out to army. It's the person who's got communal responsibility. It's the person that's taking on himself. He's no longer just focusing. You're still focusing yourself. You're developing, finding your identity. 20, you fit in. You already know what I need to be doing in the big picture. And now, once you know what you're doing, now you can focus on others. So the census was who's part of the nation. Part of the nation means you have your place in the nation. You don't have your place in the nation where you're no longer self-absorbed, but you're focusing on the nation. That's the guy who goes out to war. You want the person to go out to war that cares about everybody. You can't take somebody out to war that's only thinking about themselves. So that's why it's only from that age and on, that is when a person is focusing on outside of him. That's where it comes in. I think that comes out very nice as well, therefore. We give a person a blessing at the bris. All right? Torah is from the age of 13. Chuppah is 18. Ben Shemona Asr lechuppah. Ma'asim Tovim is communal work. You're blessing him that it should be an asset to be able to Ma'asim Tovim for the community. We're explaining it now. When is the person the asset to the community? He starts being able to focus on the community. That starts on 20. So the order now is the correct order. It's 13, 18, and 20. That's the order, right? So it's not just doing any good things, doing good things, right? Now, obviously, our job as parents is to create children that are outward thinking, that are not self-absorbed. That's our responsibility. Children are born, we've spoken about this before, they're born by nature as self-absorbed. They're egotistic. That's what a child, I want this, I want that, So our job is to train them, and sometimes they catch on quicker, and sometimes, it's like you're supposed to get married at 18, they say that people that are older, they're davening along Shemona Esrei, it's sometimes it takes longer. It takes a little bit longer to get to that point. But it's our job to understand. But what the main point what I'm trying to say is over here is knowing that rebellion is not a reflection specifically about the relationship. But the rebellion that occurs at this time is more about their challenging authority to create that self-definition for themselves. Right? It's still infuriating and you're still upset. But we need to recognize it's not about us. It's about them. That doesn't mean we have to ignore behaviors. If they're doing something that's self-destructive and they're doing things that are hurtful and they're hurting others, which they will do. It's all part of it. Right? But our job is let's deal with those behaviors. And try to the extent that we can. And it's very, very difficult. Because nobody likes to be ignored. Nobody likes to be, things that are rebelled. But that hopefully will temper the way we deal with it and make it about what is the corrective behavior as opposed to the rebellious behavior, because the rebellious behavior is not really against us. It's part of defining who they are themselves. And that's, I think, it's a very, very important message in terms of dealing with teenagers. Because they're so oppositional. It's like you'll say yes, they'll say no. But it's not because they want to be oppositional, because they want to disagree with you. But the only way they can feel who they are is the disagreeing. So it's not about you per se, it's about them. And again, it doesn't make it easier, but it allows us to refocus. Okay, let's see what it is. Now, sometimes you need to address that because they need to understand derech eretz. They need to understand there are things that have to be, but then it's about them. I need this for you for the future, Not because you're disagreeing, but that's not how a person should be behaving. I have to address the behavior for what it's doing to you. It's bad behavior for you. I can't have that. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu can forgive until 20, then we got to try to do the same. Then we have to try and emulate that as well. So I think that is, just a very, very, I think it's just one of the most important messages we can have about dealing with our children, especially in these very difficult, sometimes you just sit back and you say to yourself, how did this happen? How can, but it's not about us. It's, and please God, everybody goes through some level of bumpiness and thank God, hopefully by the age that they get more mature but it is the way to temper it, by the way, and the way to is trying to figure out how they can become outward thinking, because when they start feeling good about doing things for others, that itself creates a good feeling. Rambam says the greatest simcha a person can have is helping poor people. That's the greatest simcha you can have, is by feeling that I am a source of somebody else's nachas. That's being outward thinking. But we got to get to that. Wishing everyone a Kabbalas HaTorah b'simcha.